Hey math enthusiast, I want to go over the problems from section 10.7, which talks about equations of circles. So for these first couple problems, what they want us to do is just write out the equation of my circle in that standard form. So you just got to remember what that standard form is. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. And if you remember, that h and that k represent the center of my circle, and r is obviously the radius. So first thing I need to do is locate my center, which in this case it looks like it's just going to be 0, 0. And my radius is just the distance from the center to any point on the circle. Now they're going by 2's, so my radius is going to be 6 in this case. So when I plug this into my equation, since I'm going to have 0 and 0 here, x minus 0 is just going to be x, and y minus 0 is just going to be y. And my radius squared is going to be 36. For the next problem, start with the center of your circle. Looks like this point right here is the center. They're going by 1's in this case, so it looks like my center is at 3, 1. Remember, 3 represents your h, 1 represents your k. And the next thing you need is your radius. So that's the distance from the center to any point on your circle. It looks like in this case my radius is 2. So when I plug this into my equation, I'm going to have x minus h, which is 3, y minus k, which is 1, and equals r squared. Next couple problems are even easier, I think. I want to write the equation of my circle. Now, in this case, I'm given my center and I'm given my radius. So remember, in this case, your h is -3 and your k is 0. And obviously my radius is 5. So when I write out my equation, I know it's going to be x minus h, which is going to be -3, so it's going to turn to a positive. Now my k is 0, so that's really just going to be y minus 0, which is y squared, equals the radius squared, which is 25. For the next problem, the center they give me is 4, -7, and my radius is 13. So when I plug this into my equation, remember this is your h, this is your k, so it's going to be x minus 4 squared, y minus k, which remember, change your sign because it's y minus -7, equals r squared, 13 squared, which gives me 169. Now the next problem is a little bit more complicated. They do give me my center, which is -43.5, so I do have my h and I do have my k. But the problem is I don't know my radius right now. Well, they do give me another point that's on the circle. Well, remember, to get your radius, you need the distance from the center to any point on your circle. So much like the problems from the notes, I'm going to have to go back and use the distance formula. So we're going to do x2 minus x1, which is going to turn into plus 34 squared, plus y2, 5, minus y1, 17. So it looks like we end up with -9 squared plus -12 squared. Both of these are going to turn to positive, so we end up with 81 and 144, which gives me 225, which tells me that the radius is 15. So the distance from the center to that point on my circle is 15. And I already have my center here, -43.5, so now I can write out my equation. So it's going to be x minus h, which is going to turn into plus 43 squared, plus y minus k, so y minus 5, equals the radius squared, which I already know from using the distance formula is 225. Next problem is a similar setup. My center is at 0, 0. Point on the circle is 7, negative 24. So I have my center, so I know my h is 0, I know my k is 0. What I need is the radius. So once again, I have to use the distance formula. But in this case, when I plug it in, I'm just going to have 7 minus 0 squared and negative 24 minus 0 squared. So it's really just going to give me 7 squared and negative 24 squared, which gives me 49, 576, square root 625, which gives me 25. Now I have everything I need for my equation. Now since my h and k are 0, I know my equation is just going to be x squared plus y squared, then equals my radius squared, 625. Next couple problems, now I actually have to graph the circle based on the equation that I'm given. So remember, this is my h, this is my k, and then this over here is my radius squared. So my center is going to be h, which is positive 3, and k, which is going to be negative 1. And my radius is just going to be 2. So when I graph my circle, it's going to be at 3, negative 1, and then my radius is 2. So I'm going 2 points up, 2 points to the right, 2 points down, and 2 points to the left. Then I just want to roughly sketch my circle using those points. For the next problem, start off the same way. Identify your h, your k, and your radius. So I know my center, my h is going to be negative 5, my k is going to be positive 7, and my radius, remember this is your radius squared, my radius is going to be 5. So when I graph this point, remember you're going by 2's in this case, so negative 5 is going to be right here, and positive 7 is going to be right here. So my center is actually going to be right at that point, and then I'm going 5 for my radius. So 5 to the right, I'm going 5 down, I'm going 5 to the left, and I'm going 5 up. And then just try to connect those points with a nice circle. For this next problem, I have 2 items to graph. I have to graph this circle, and I have to graph this line. And I want to determine, is that line a tangent or a secant in regards to my circle. So let's start off and identify the parts in my circle. So it looks like my center, HK, is going to be at positive 4, negative 2, remember because this is positive, and my radius, well the radius squared is 16, so my radius is 4. As far as my line goes, well it's just y equals 2. And remember, y equals, anytime it says that, I know right away it's going to be a horizontal line going through where y is 2 on my graph. So I can actually plot that right away. I know it's going to look like this. Next thing, for my circle though, my center is at 4, negative 2. So I'm going to go right 4, down 2, and then my radius is 4. So I'm going to go 4 units to the right, I'm going to go 4 units down, 4 units to the left, and 4 units up. Now, before I trace my circle, I can really already tell what type of line that it's going to be at. Up at the top, it only touches my circle at that one single point, which means that it's tangent to my circle. Next couple problems, I need to find the center and the radius for these circles. Now remember, the issue is that they aren't in that standard form that I'm accustomed to seeing. So what I want to do is rewrite these equations so that they're in this standard form. First thing I want to do for number 10 is just rearrange it. All right, so let's get our x's together, x squared and 4x. We'll get our y's together, y squared and 6y. And I'm going to take that 36 and I'm going to move it over to the other side. So remember, I have to determine what I want to add here and here so that I can essentially factor each of these trinomials. All right, so remember, to figure that out, you're going to take this term, that 4, I'm going to divide it by 2 and square it. So 4 divided by 2, and then I'm going to square that. Well, that's just going to be 2 squared, and that's just going to bring me right back to 4. So what I'm going to add here is plus 4. Then same deal here. When I take that, divide it and square it, that's going to give me plus 9. Now you should be able to factor them, so it looks like I'm going to have x plus 2 squared and y plus 3 squared. Then on the other side, don't forget, since you added 4 and 9 on the left, I have to add 4 and 9 on the right, which is going to give me 49. Now, as I said, for the problem, I need to find my center and my radius. So this is my h, this is my k, this is my radius squared. Since both of these are positive, I know my center is going to be at -2, -3, and my radius is really going to be 7. For the next problem, same deal. Remember, your goal is to get to that standard form. X minus h squared, y minus k squared, and then equals r squared. So, start off by just rearranging it. Get your x's together, x squared plus 6x. Leave a little space. We got y squared minus 8y. There's no other term to move to the other side, so it's just going to be equal to 0 right now. So figure out what term to add in there. All right, looks like on the left-hand side for my x's, I'm going to add 9 once again. And on the right-hand side, if I take half of -8 and square it, that's going to give me positive 16. So I know I'm going to add 9 and 16 over on the right-hand side. So now I just need to go through and factor this. So that's going to give me x plus 3 squared. On the right-hand side, I'm going to have y minus 4 squared, because this sign is negative, and then it's going to equal 25. So now I just need to identify my center and my radius. So this is my h, this is my k, this is my radius squared, which means my radius is 5, and my center, since this is positive, is -3, and since this is negative, it's just going to be positive 4.